Hey y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today's lesson is a potato soup recipe that my husband absolutely loves. It is a take on one that we eat all the time when we go visit Tennessee, and we can't have it anymore now that we live in Alabama as often as we like, so I've had to come up with how to make it at home. This is a great shortcut supper recipe. It's so shortcut that I'm actually going to prep some of the things while I'm talking to you, because if I did everything out of the fridge and freezer section that I'm teaching you today and paired that with the meal prep stuff, we wouldn't even have time enough to do all the talking that we want to do together. So I'm going to give you all of the swaps, but I am actually going to chop some potatoes and scallions with you today. And I've already got my onions and my celery chopped like I do at the beginning of my week. I chop all kinds of veggies. I've got those on hand, but obviously I'll give you all the swaps for that too if you don't even want to do the chopping. So first things first, I'm going to get some heat under my big soup pot. I'm going to get it on medium heat, medium high, and then like I go all the way up in even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, then to high. So I'm putting it on kind of like a 6-ish. So that's medium high for me. And then I'm going to get 5 tablespoons of butter into my pan. Now, I'm going to put in 5 tablespoons of butter now here to saute my onions and celery in. But this is also going to be the fat that we need later to kind of build a roux in the bottom of our soup, so it ends up being really nice and thick when it's time to eat it. So 5 tablespoons of butter going in. Now, a lot of times when you hear potato soup, you think heavy and creamy, and we are going to do some creamy things at the end. But the base of this soup is really brothy stock. We're not going to strain any of our boiling liquid, so our potatoes are actually going to add starch to the pot, and that's going to start to thicken things up. All in all, literally, you could do diced potatoes out of the freezer section and not even have to chop like I'm doing right now. Diced onions out of the freezer section. Dump those in the pan, and all you're chopping is a couple of stalks of celery. So easy peasy if you want to do that. But I do have my celery and my onion already chopped. This is 1 onion that I'm going to use here. If you're doing the bag of diced onions out of the freezer section, just use the whole bag. And then I've got about 8 to 10 medium to small russet potatoes. You can get a bag of diced potatoes. The standard size bag is all you need. It'll end up being about 5 cups of diced potatoes, 4 or 5 depending on the brand that you buy. But you really just need enough to really make enough soup for your family. So grab a good bag of the diced potatoes and you'll be in business in the freezer section. But I'm going to chop and drop here, and as soon as my butter is totally melted, then I'm going to put in my onions and my celery. We don't want any browning on our butter. We just want to get it nice and melty, and we're probably getting close to being there. Yeah, we'll be there in just a minute. So I'm going to start chopping my potatoes. These are peeled and rinsed and ready to go. So anytime that you're chopping potatoes, always make a flat surface first, and then you're going to go ahead and get them close to the same size. You want to have even sizes so your cook time is about the same, but honest to goodness, we're not mashing these. We're not trying to do anything that's going to absolutely... I almost put them in the pot. I need a bowl for these guys. I almost just went straight to the pot with them. We don't need to do that. See, I get to talking and I have company with me, you guys, and I just get to go, and I'm about to just drop things in the pot too soon. Okay, let me get a bowl out for my potatoes so I can talk in drops in the right place. Okay, so you want to make a flat edge and then chop about the same size so they have equal amounts of cook time. But if you're doing them out of the diced potatoes in the freezer section, they're already going to be nice and square for you. The reason that we want potatoes the same size is because we don't want one piece to be raw and another piece to be cooked to death. But we are cooking these, probably the potatoes will be done in about 12 minutes, but other than that, everything else will take no time at all to actually be done. Softening of the veggies done in minutes. So this is a really fast one, like I said. In with my celery. This is 2 stalks of celery going in and 1 whole onion. And now that my butter's melted, I am going to turn my heat back. I'm going to add a little extra onion in there. Turn my heat back to medium low because I don't want it to get too far gone. And always season every layer. So now that I've got my veggies in there, I'm going to go ahead and get a little teaspoon of salt so it can begin to help my vegetables weep. And that just means to let out some of the liquid. Okay, so we got my heat turned down to a 3 or a 4. that's kind of like a highish low. And then I'm going to finish chopping my potatoes. Now my potatoes are all going to go in at the same time after these have had about 2 or 3 minutes to soften up a little bit. And then after the potatoes go in, we're going to add in our liquid. And in this case, it's going to be chicken broth. I am going to bump up the flavor a little bit with some veggie base, or you can use chicken base for this as well. And that just really adds in a really nice background savory flavor that lets it taste like it's cooked a lot longer than it actually has. And honestly, that is one of the secrets of restaurant food, why it tastes so good. It's really got the depth of flavor from slow cooking or these chicken and beef bases that make it taste even more slow cooked than it may actually be. These little beef bases, chicken bases, and vegetable bases that I use all the time, they can be found right in your spice aisle. They are refrigerate after opening, the ones that I get. I actually find organic ones in my grocery store. But if you want chicken bouillon cubes that don't have to be refrigerated, those are in the spice aisle as well. I just like the base, the chicken base, the beef base that you can scoop out with a spoon because I get more portion control on that. I like to be in charge in the kitchen. Maybe that's not good. Maybe it is. I don't know. Nobody else needs to be in charge in the kitchen in my house, so we're going to go with Mama being in charge, and that's good. Okay, so I'm going to get these done, and once my potatoes are all chopped, they're going to go in, and we're going to season the next layer. And always when you're cooking anything, you want to season each layer as you build. So at the end, you're not like, oh, this doesn't taste like anything, and you're adding salt, salt, salt. If you do it throughout the process, a little bit along the way, you're going to end up with a really good, savory, flavorful result and not have to take so much spice at the end. Now, we always check at the end. Don't get me wrong. We always check at the end, and we make sure it's good before it goes out to the people that we're feeding. But we usually should not have to add too terribly much. And this is the size I'm going for. Some of these are going to actually break apart and become part of the soup a little bit. But for the most part, these will maintain the shape and size that we're giving them. Now, this bowl right here will be full of potatoes in a minute. So it's about 5 cups of potatoes for this amount. But this makes a lot of soup. I always make this for about what I would consider a party of 6 to 8. Because we are a party of 6, even though our littles don't eat as much. Our bigs make up for it, our big boys. And Daddy, honestly, will eat this until he can't move. Now, I'm going to top this with little scallions and cheddar cheese at the end. But you can always doctor this up any way you like. That's the truth of the kitchen. You can fix this to your liking any kind of way you like to, any kind of way you like to top it. All right, so my potatoes are done. I'm going to check my onions and my celery, and they're getting nice and soft. They're doing good things, but no color. You don't want color on them at this point. This is a really nice pale yellow soup. Okay, and my potatoes are going in. One ran away. Get him back in the bowl. Okay, my potatoes are going in. If you can't find a good big size bag of diced potatoes, you may want to do 2, and that's totally fine, but you just want about 5 or 6 cups of diced potatoes in there. Okay, now we're going to stir this around. Let my butter coat everything, and then we are going to season this layer. This layer is going to get salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. So I'm going to go with a tablespoon of onion powder, tablespoon of garlic powder, and this has a really clean, neat flavor to it. So it's got gorgeous, gorgeous pale yellow color. It's not muddied by a lot of different cheeses and bacon and all that like some are. You can put bacon on top, but trust me with this process, the flavor in this is amazing. It's a little different than what we've done with a loaded sort of potato soup before, but this one is delicious. All right, then I'm going to go with a tablespoon of salt and then about 10 or 12 cracks of black pepper or a teaspoon of black pepper. Then I'm going to add in about 4 cups of chicken stock, and we're going to boil the potatoes in our chicken stock. Let me grab that real quick. Now, if you're doing this in a crock pot, you can add this in And at this point is when you would want to put on your lid and go to work or go to school or whatever. And you would add your creamy things in later at the very end. So I'm going to go in with 4 cups of this. And then I'm going to add in a tablespoon of my vegetable or my chicken base. Make sure I can get the lid off. I'm going to have to get a helper, maybe. I think I can do this. Me and my husband and our youngest son were in the kitchen. Yay, I got it. We're in the kitchen in Tennessee last weekend, and my mother-in-law pops in and she just hands a jar to my father-in-law to open, and my father-in-law grabs the jar and just hands it to my son. He's like, I'm passing the torch. I'm not opening jars anymore. Okay, a tablespoon of this goes in. I guess if he's a college athlete, he better be able to open some jars. Okay. That's a tablespoon of that, and then I'm going to add in 2 more cups of water because I want there to be plenty of liquid for our potatoes to cook in. So if you've got a mason jar, you've got a measuring cup, and my quart mason jar needs to be about half full to get 2 cups of water. So that's what I'm going to do. I keep a mason jar on hand all the time in the kitchen. I usually keep one full by the stove just to have on hand to slow any kind of cooking process down that may be getting a little too speedy. Or if I had something like this that needs water a little at a time, I can do that. But fill this up in case I need more later, but I'm going to use about 2 cups of it now. And then we're going to get the lid on. We don't want to leave the lid on once this comes to a boil, but we're going to bring it to a simmer with a lid on. And the starches in the potatoes are what's going to make you want to take the lid off once it comes to a simmer. I'm going to watch this real close. I'm not going to walk away. And once my potatoes are tender, we'll do the next steps. And that'll take about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, y'all, we're ready to wrap up this delicious potato soup. Our potatoes have been cooking for right at 12 minutes and they're super tender. I took the lid off as soon as it came to a simmer and let them kind of do their thing for a few minutes. And now we're going to finish this off. So the last few things I have to do is add in some sour cream, some heavy cream, and a little bit of cheese. But before I do that, I want my soup to get a little bit more liquid and I want it to have a little bit of thickness to it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little more chicken stock. And any time that you want to thicken something, you want to make something called either a slurry or a roux. And because we have butter in the bottom of our pan in there, I'm going to just go ahead and kind of go the roux route, but a little less traditional. This is the ingredients of a roux, but kind of done in the slurry fashion. Trust me, it works. Slurry is cornstarch and water or cold liquid. This is gonna work just as well. So I'm gonna add in some more chicken stock to my pot. The reason I didn't add it all at the beginning is just because I wanted it to boil faster, and we're gonna add it in now. So I'm gonna take about a half a cup of cold chicken stock or cool chicken stock, and I'm gonna add in a tablespoon or 2 of flour. I'm gonna say 2 tablespoons, but it's probably gonna come out of the bag in 1 heaping spoonful. That's why I said or 2. But it's 2 tablespoons of flour. And I'm gonna put it into my slurry. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a fork and I'm gonna whisk this into my chicken stock until it doesn't really have any lumps or anything like that. And it's gonna just incorporate almost immediately. And because this is cool, it's gonna go into my boiling pot of liquid, and it's going to thicken this and not give any lumps because it's going to immediately dissolve into the hot liquid. So once all of my lumps are gone in the cold stock, then I can pour it into my hot broth. So I'm going to get a spoon to help me. You can get a whisk if you want to, but it will not give you lumps at this point. And I'm going to just go into my pot a little at a time, slowly, and then I'm going to stir that together. Now that's going to return to a boil, and I'm going to add in 2 more cups of my chicken broth to this liquid. So all together you need about 6 cups of chicken broth. And I can feel in this box when it gets to halfway. That's how I'm measuring. This is 4 cups of stock or a quart of stock per box. Okay, and so I'm going to put my heat up again to high. I'm going to bring that to a simmer. and let this do its thing and thicken. And while it's doing that, I'm gonna grate some cheese. Now, our cheese is just our topping, but if you wanted to, you could easily put your cheese into the soup. This is just a preference thing. Like the soup that we got at this restaurant in Tennessee is, like I said, this pale blonde color, and there's no cheese in it. But obviously, when you got kiddos, they're gonna want some cheese on their potato soup, so I do it as a garnish. I'm gonna get a paper towel or a washcloth or something to wipe this flour off my board. I've got flour everywhere. Just kind of jumped out of the cup a little bit. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so now I'm gonna take half of this block and grate about 4 ounces of cheddar cheese. This is sharp cheddar, but you can use whatever you want. Colby Jack works here, mild cheddar works here. I really almost always just have this sharp cheddar on hand, so it's what we use most of the time. I'm gonna get a plate so I don't have to scoop it off of my board and get this grated. Now this is going to simmer, and it's almost as soon as it starts to simmer, you're gonna notice a thickening. Then once that happens, we're gonna turn the heat very low or even off, and then we're gonna add in our creamy things. Anytime you're adding in milk, cream, anything like that, you're gonna whisk it very well, especially sour cream. And you're not going to want to return it to a boil again, or your dairy will curdle and separate, and we don't want that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep our heat very low or off when we do our dairy, and then that's gonna go in at the very end. Okay. And I also want to chop some green onions. I love scallions, and green onions are the same thing, whatever you want to call them. I love scallions on top of this. I love scallions on a lot of things. It's one of my favorite things, both for flavor and garnish. You just can't beat the flavor. And I've got about 4 bunches of green onions here. I took the tops off that looked like they weren't excited to be here. Basically, they looked wilty and sad. So I said, see you later to those. And then I'm gonna chop up what we have left here. And anytime you wanna chop green onions, just get them in a bunch, so when you pass through, you're doing multiple slices with every pass, and keep your fingers curled under as you go through the bunch. I almost never have anything potato without a green onion on top of it. I can't think of much that I do. All right, get that chopped down. All right, now our boiling is happening. I can hear that over here. Oh yeah, thickening is starting to happen. Yes, all right. Now, this is gonna simmer for a little bit longer. And while that does, I just want it to thicken another 60 seconds, and then we're gonna add in this. I wanna tell you, I always link my knife below. If you need a sharp knife, this one is a really good value. You can get expensive in the knife department, but you don't have to. So I've linked a really good $30 set of this size and one that's a step down smaller. Both come with a cover, which I really like both because I travel with my knife often, but we also have little ones, so I like to kind of keep them, especially the big sharp ones, I like to keep them safe with these covers. I'm going to link that below, but you're also going to find a link down there for my Shortcut Suppers 15 for 15 ebook. It's a digital cookbook. So basically you get all the pages of the cookbook downloadable and printable, but you also get episodes of Shortcut Suppers with me to go with each of those recipe cards. So whether you have time to watch me do it every single time or not, you have the recipe cards on hand, and those actually have a grocery list, the tools you'll need, and the recipes on them. So I'll link that below too. And I'll also link to Mama Whitten's Kitchen, my virtual cooking school that has a library of every episode that I've ever created, as well as live classes with me every single Friday. So I'll link all those things below in the description on the video. Okay, so now that I have told you that, I'm going to get my cream in and my sour cream in. My cream is going to go in, and it's going to be, oh, I almost forgot to turn my heat down. Turn the heat off. My cream is going to go in, and then my sour cream, because this will actually lower the heat just ever so slightly, even though my heat's off, and then we'll get our sour cream in, which is actually going to need a little muscle to get it mixed in. So I'm going to go in with a cup of heavy cream. Like I said, this is a mostly brothy base, but that cup of heavy cream goes a very long way. And I'm going to get my whisk out, and I'm going to go in with a cup of sour cream. And this sour cream, like I said, it's gonna take a little muscle to get in there, but this is gonna really amp up the creamy factor, and there is nothing like it. This has been brought to room-ish temperature. It's been out of the fridge for about 45 minutes, and that will help it get incorporated very easily into our soup as well. You don't ever want to take something cold out of the fridge, like very cold, and put it into your heat. It will take so much longer to do the mixing portion in, and then also it will have less chance of actually incorporating well. All right, and see, just like that, that is in there. Now, because I used some of the leaves of the celery, there's beautiful flecks of green in there. But I'm gonna add in some of my scallions into my big pot of soup and then save some for the top. That's gonna even add more green to it. And I'm also gonna taste right now to see if I need to add any salt before I serve it to anybody else. This is the best way to know if you're gonna be there in the seasoning department, your taster. A little tiny bit of salt and we'll be at home run status. Okay, just a little sprinkling of salt and we'll be in business. And honestly, this is a preference thing. I'm gonna add some cheese, that'll add some saltiness, but my taste buds are a little on the salty side, so always taste to know what you're gonna want for your family. And now it's time to get a bowl. I'm excited. My husband asked me yesterday, what are you gonna make for shortcut suppers tomorrow? And I said, potato soup. He goes, yes. He knows what to look forward to this afternoon when he gets home from work. Okay, if you wanted to, you could absolutely decide to take half of this out and blend it up in your blender. If you wanted to thicken this up even further, that's up to you. But I prefer a little bit of a more brothy, like I said, brothy base out of this. That's kind of the consistency for where we have originally gotten this from. I'm gonna top it with a little bit of cheese. You can even add another dollop of sour cream at this point, which, why not? And then a little bit of green onions on top. And this is this week's shortcut supper. I love to serve this with a hunk of rustic garlic bread. Really good to top this with fried onion toppers. Or if you want to, you can take some ranch seasoning, melt a stick of butter, toss a couple tablespoons of ranch seasoning, and then put in a box of oyster crackers. Toss all that together and bake that for about 10 minutes. Those would be really delicious on top of here. But this is all mine, and I can't wait to eat it. I'm gonna blow it very carefully though, because I mean, it's hot. It's like a warm hug. Happy cooking, y'all. I can't wait to see you next time. Go make this.